Hi again, it's Ryan. I had originally planned on doing this SX-64 project and rebuild in kind of a chronological order, but for various reasons, that's just not going to be happening right now. Because like the next big step, there's some uh, delays with that. So anyway, I thought I'd show you some of the other smaller parts just to kind of keep the project moving a little bit. So what you see here is the handle parts, and I disassembled it so I could clean it pretty well. You can see there's still places here where I really should be doing some touch-up painting and stuff, and I might come back and do that later. I haven't found the exact right shade of gray yet for this, but eventually I will. Okay, so I'm going to put this back together. If you haven't taken one apart before, you'll notice that there's two holes on this part here and here, and those match up to the two holes here. It's real simple. There's nothing complicated about this at all. And then you just put the screws back in. The hard part for handles is the attachment to the case. So let me put this back together and we'll talk about that. Okay, so when I got this particular SX-64, the handle was off, and these pieces here that connect the handle to the case and allow it to lock in place were just in a bag. And one set for one side was missing entirely, and you can see here on this one, the peg is broken off. All right, so this wasn't going to work anyway. I asked around to see if I could find some replacement parts from some people, and no dice, which really isn't surprising. These are just practically impossible to find. They've gotten, when the handles have come off, they've gotten lost, they've broken, whatever. So we need another solution. I think I have one. Okay, so I have a 3D printer, which is very helpful. And I found online a model where somebody basically modeled up essentially the screw that would allow you to attach the handle to the SX, but it didn't have any kind of locking feature to it. So I started playing with it, and this is what I ended up with. This is the base. Okay, it's essentially this part. Okay, and you'll notice we've got a couple little cutouts here and here, 90 degrees apart. We have this piece, and this is going to sit on top of this piece. So you'll notice that this also has the gaps that are the same size and will line up. Okay. This is a little handle piece, and it's going to sit in like this with the screw holder going in here and the screw. Now the idea is, and if you'll notice here, I've got another one, there's these two little cutouts here and here are for some small springs. So when I put this together, I'm going to put a couple of small springs in here. So this thing is going to be spring loaded. Okay, so when it's here, it's locked. It can't turn. Then you pull it this way, it allows you to turn it 90 degrees, and then when it's spring loaded, it'll spring back in place and lock the handle in. Okay. These two pieces are essentially just add-ons to the handle, so that it'll extend this, and then this little piece goes in here, holds it together, gives a nice good strong glue surface. And the reason I did it in these different pieces is so that it can all be printed flat on the printer bed, okay, with as little support as possible, and so you have less to clean up, basically. Okay, so let's start putting this together, and then we'll attach it with the handle to the SX and see how well it works. Okay, so I'm going to start with the pieces for the handle, and this is a good example of why I printed this out in several pieces, because it actually has to go on like this. So if you were to try to print this on a 3D printer bed, you're either going to end up with a bunch of supports on this side or a bunch of supports on this side, or you have to print it this way, which is really not that stable. So it's just easier to do it like this. Okay, so I'm going to use CA glue. This is basically it's super glue. This is what a lot of people who use 3D printers love using, this super glue. Unfortunately, it looks like my nozzle's a bit clogged here, so I'll clean that off and I'll put this together and then come back to the video. Okay, so here we go. It's all glued together. You can see you've got that little blue piece that fit through that hole there. So that'll give it, helps to not only give it some mechanical strength, but it helps with the alignment and a number of things. So there's our handle. Okay, so we've got the handle piece glued together. Time for some assembly. Here are the springs, and I'm going to put the specs for all of these parts in the notes below. These are 0.4 by 2.3 by 9 millimeters springs. Pretty small, but that's what we want. Okay, so one of these is going to go in each of these little slots here, and then we got to kind of compress them a little bit to make them fit. Okay, they should stay in there like that. Ah! And then I drop it, but hey, they stayed in there, so yay. Okay, I'll lay this on top, okay, and that should be perfectly flat on there. Okay, that shows you the springs are in place, and you can see if you move it, you can feel that the springs are providing some resistance. All right. Line this up with one of the notches on the bottom. Push the screw holder piece in. That should be flush on the bottom. And then the screw all the way through. Now you can see, you can feel that there's resistance here, so we can pull it this way enough that this bottom will rotate, and then when it's all lined up, it'll snap back into place. So let's put the other one together, and then we'll start assembling the whole thing. Okay, so I'm going handheld for just a minute here because I want to show you this, and if you hear something in the background, it's the printer running, so I'll show you that in a second too. So this is the design done in Tinkercad. Now there are many more sophisticated programs out there to do 3D design in, but Tinkercad is easy to use, and for something like this it's perfectly sufficient. So if it's something simple like this, I just go to Tinkercad because I just personally find it easier and a bit faster. I'm sure people out there who are more familiar with like Fusion 360 would probably disagree with that. Use whatever you're comfortable with and have good results with. So here's the model up in Tinkercad, and you see it's in the different pieces there. These pieces here are sitting on their sides right now, and the reason that I print them in that orientation is because the printer is going to print layer by layer, and it builds up. So as it's doing that, if I print it like this, then these pegs are going to have a layer line that's going to go all the way into the body of the disc. Okay, if I were to lay them the other way, then the layer lines would actually be going like this, and they'd be more likely to break off. So I print these on their ends like that, even though there's going to be more support to remove. So let's go take a look at the printer. Okay, so here's the printer going, and you can see right now we're printing a couple of those discs. You kind of see the shape of them there. And so they're printing on the edges, and you can see the support structures that are being built as well. But again, the reason for doing this is the layer lines are going to run this way. So as it lays down a layer, it's going to put that layer through the main body of the disc and into the peg, so that it gives it a little bit extra strength. Okay. Now we're ready to put it in. This is the front of the case, obviously. We want to put this in so that our pegs are going to go in, obviously, this way. But we want one notch facing the front of the case and one notch facing the bottom of the case. And it should just drop right in there. You may have to trim the printed parts a little bit. Like mine, I think, was over extruding a bit, so I had to trim the pegs a little. But that's what we want. And then you're going to take this piece, making sure that the springs don't pop out. We're just going to put it in like this, making sure that this part goes in the slot. Okay. And then tip it up. Do the same on the other side. You see the handle just goes on the pegs on this side, and then we take the screw adapter piece thing, stick that in, tighten it down. Same on this side. And now the question is, does it work? You got to pull down on both sides. This might not be a one-person job. You might be able to move it enough. Let's see here. There we go. And it locks in place. So you can move one, move it just enough, move the other one. And there we go. Now I also printed up some of these caps to go on here. These are not my design. This is somebody else's that was on, I think they're on Tinkercad. But they've got the little notch there, and it just lines up there and snaps in. And then these would also need a little bit of that double-sided tape to hold it in place. So you can find those, print those out, and there you go. A working handle. Now, I will say a couple things here. First, this should be considered experimental. I have not used this much at all. I have no idea how durable it's going to be in the long run because it's 3D printed. The good thing is you can always print more pieces. I suspect that the part that is most likely to break would be these pegs. And if that's the case, you could take that same design and replace the peg with a hole and then just use a piece of steel in place of it and just epoxy it in. And that's what I'll do if this turns out to not be very sturdy. But I wanted to just give the plastic a shot and see how well it works. And for now, I mean, we can see that the system, the mechanism, does work, does hold it in place. We'll have to see over time how durable it ends up being, though. So, couple other last things. This is just PLA. This is not, those of you who know 3D printing, you know what that is. You could probably make it stronger by using different plastic. PETG maybe would be stronger. Like I said, this is experimental. Feel free to print your own, try different things, and let me know how it works. This design, all these pieces are going to be up on Thingiverse for free for anybody to download and print. And I think I'm going to put them at some point on Shapeways, which is a website that lets you, basically you pay them to print it for you and send it to you. So if you don't have a 3D printer and you don't have access to one, it's a way of getting 3D printed parts. Okay. So these will be up on Thingiverse, they will be up on Shapeways, so you will have access to them. Okay. And again, it'll be up because it's on Thingiverse. It'll be under Creative Commons license. So if you want to, modify it or whatever, hey, feel free to. Just with the proper attribution and all that jazz. Okay. So hope this is helpful for somebody. Hope this solves a problem. Thanks for watching.